Hello and welcome to Dingoes Ate My Podcast. I'm Paul,
And I'm Dave.
and this week we're discussing the first episode of Angel Season 5, which is Conviction. This episode originally aired October 1st, 2003, attracting approximately 5.16 million viewers. Alrighty, so why don't we start off with the number one song in America this week, Dave? Do you have any idea what it could be?
Hmm. Again, that and skipping over around the summer. Around the start of October, around that time.
We'll quickly go over the stuff that happened during the summer, but I figured we'd start with what's current.
Yeah, with that. Damn, but nothing immediately comes to mind. What would essentially be number one and what would most likely be the thing that we would be listening to at the time.
I can't speak for you, but I definitely was not listening to this at the time.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
So, any ideas?
No, nothing.
Okay. So, it is a song called Crazy in Love by Beyonce featuring Jay-Z.
Yeah, that tracks.
Other songs that became number one over the summer was Get Busy by Sean Paul, although I think that might have been during the last week of last season. I can't remember for sure.
Yeah.
21 Questions by 50 Cent featuring Nate Dogg. Don't know what that is. This is the Night by Clay Aiken. Do you remember Clay Aiken?
Yeah, vaguely, like not enough to be like, oh, I know that person. It's just like I know the name, and that's about it.
Wasn't he like one of the American Idol people?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, I think he was an American Idol person. But again, I don't really know. Anyway, moving on to the number one film in America this week, Dave. Any idea?
Hmm.
And again, we'll cover this what happened over the summer after, but
Them again around that time at the start of October.
no. Oh yeah, sorry. Oh, crap. I might have given you. I apologize. I gave you the wrong number one song because I went for September, not October. It was
Uh,
actually "Shake Ya Tail Feather" by Nelly, P Diddy, and Murphy Lee.
yeah, that makes sense.
So yes, sorry, we're in October. So yeah, okay. Oh, that makes me much happier. It's not a movie that I hate.
Oh, okay. So that's a bit of a hint. So, uh,
Well, not really.
yeah, because there's a fairly large list of movies that you dislike in some respect.
I will say that this is not because of the quality of the film. It is because of the person who made it.
I don't think that's around his time yet, but that still is kind of a large bar to cover with all those from there.
I'll give you a
Yeah,
hint. This movie has a wrestler in it.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Though it really does slim it down because before the last couple of years, there's only really been one real big wrestler. Now it's just a question of which movie. Uh, nah, no immediate title is coming to mind.
It's a film called The Rundown.
Okay, it wasn't what I was immediately thinking.
No, it's The Rock and Sean William Scott and Christopher Walken, and it's like an action movie. I mean, it's the Rock's, of course. It's an action movie, but like I don't really remember this terribly.
So, like, the actors list and the couple little bits of things are like, I wouldn't be surprised if I've actually seen this film, but also a case of I'm not surprised that I would have forgotten this film.
Oh, also Rosario Dawson's in it, which that's pretty cool.
Hmm.
I mean, it looks like it. It seemed to get pretty good reviews. Like Roger Ebert really liked it. He gave it 3.5 stars out of 4. So
Oh, there you go.
let's quickly go over what happened during the summer for movies, though. So when we left, Finding Nemo was the number one film at the box office. Uh,
Indeed.
we would also get Too Fast, Too Furious this summer. Um,
Of course. The start of that thing.
well, yeah, Too Fast, Too Furious is not the best of those movies, but we'd also get Hulk, not the good one, the Ang Lee
Yeah, the
version.
first one that was people trying to work with the idea, but not really knowing the bits, and as well as just not having the technology up to snuff.
We'd also get Charlie's Angels Full Throttle,
Yeah, that tracks.
Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, which, I mean, that sure was a movie that came out.
Indeed. I don't have too much memory. I only remember one and two.
Yeah, there's a reason for that, Dave.
Yeah.
Pirates of the Caribbean, the Purse of the Black Pearl, and The Curse of Paul hating those movies.
Yeah, understandable.
Bad Boys 2, Spy Kids 3D, American Wedding, SWAT, Freddy vs. Jason, which I will defend. I know some people don't like that movie, but it's a lot of fun.
It's one of those kind of cases of, with how long they both existed, how many ideas could you supposedly come up with before it finally got to this? And it's a case of I've heard bits and bits of pieces about it, but I haven't actually seen it myself.
So, this movie was supposed to be made in like the early 90s, but it
And the
kept
fact
getting.
that it,
But there was like
it
rights issues and it kept getting delayed, and it just took like 15 years for that movie to actually get made.
yeah,
Even though it's. Again, I will defend that movie because I love it.
there it goes.
Um, the one I really we're just gonna quickly gloss over Jeepers Creepers 2 because Victor Salva is a gigantic piece of shit.
Duly noted.
We're not anybody who doesn't know why, just look up Victor Salva and then you'll understand why I freaking hate that man.
Yes.
Dickie Roberts' former child star. I don't know if you remember that movie.
Nah.
No, okay, it's a David Spade comedy. I didn't expect you to. It wasn't very good. Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that doesn't sound like it has any familiarity for you.
Like, it's one of those things I remember hearing, but it's like I probably didn't see it.
Okay, I mean that makes sense. It would definitely not have been a movie you would have enjoyed in 2003.
Yeah.
And the first Underworld also came out.
Yes, with that one. And I believe I got it right. It's the supposed vampire one fighting against the werewolves that had all a bunch of CGI and actiony.
Yes, and it's what's her name? Kate Beckinsale.
Yes,
It's it sure is a movie that happened.
indeed.
Um, I think I've seen. I don't know if I've seen this one or if I saw the sequel to it. I saw one of them, and I was like, "That sure was a movie."
Yeah, kind of. They wanted to make an action movie, but didn't really have any sort of ideas, so they just took like the baseline of the understanding of werewolves and vampires and just slapped it all over it.
I will say that my dislike of this film could be because I was a huge Buffy fan, and I'm like, but no.
Yeah, kind of the case of they were very inexplicably loose with any of the lores of vampires and or werewolves. Like they were just barely hanging onto it with a pinky finger.
I mean, it's definitely different than like the Buffy lore, which is the one that like. There's a reason that will always be my default is because like that's what I grew up watching. So it's like, well, this is what introduced me to like basically the concept of these things. So that's always what I default to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyway, let us go over to video games. Okay. Now, this was a hell of a summer.
Suppose understandable with everything that's happened over the earlier bits of the year of the show and other stuff that's been going on. I remember that a lot of stuff was kind of going on, not enough to actually say what it was, but once you kind of bring up the list, it'll be like, I remember that.
Dave, we're gonna start just by going through June, and then I'll let you get out whatever you have to say. I'm just gonna list the games that came out in June, and not even all of them, just like the major ones.
Duly noted.
Okay, June 1st on the Game Boy Advance, Sonic Spinball Party. June
Eh,
3rd on the Xbox, Midnight Club 2.
meh.
June 9th on the Game Boy Advance, Donkey Kong Country.
Oh, there you go.
June 17th on the GameCube, Mega Man Network Transmission.
Yes.
June 17th on the GBA, Space Channel 5 Ulala's Cosmic Attack. I didn't know there was a Space Channel 5 game on the GBA.
It's somewhat understandable, but also understandable it wasn't that well remembered.
June 18th on the GameCube, Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut.
Neat.
June 23rd, Advance Wars 2 Black Hole Rising on the Game Boy Advance, of course.
Ah, there you go.
June 24th on the GBA, a game I surprisingly have never played, Buffy the Vampire Slayer Wrath of the Darkhool King.
Because it's just one of those things that we didn't have the knowledge at the time it was being released, and just no advertising for it. Because if you heard any sort of word about it, you'd be on it like a bee to honey.
Oh, no, I played other Buffy games at the time. I just didn't play this one. Because even as a 13-year-old, I looked at that game and went, that game looks like crap. Which I was apparently right about. So, happy about that. June 24th, also on the Game Boy Advance, a game that I did play, Mega Man Battle Network 3.
Yes.
June 24th on the Game Boy Advance, Stuntman.
Hey?
Do you remember Stuntman?
Vaguely.
Okay. June 24th on the GameCube, Wario World.
Yes.
June 30th on the PS2, Ape Escape 2. And finally, June 30th on the Game Boy Advance, The Simpsons Road Rage.
Yes.
Now that is a hell of a month.
Indeed. Just with June?
Yes, now we're going to get into July, and it's going to get crazier somehow. Okay, July 1st on the Xbox, Pirates of the Caribbean, which is probably not a good game, but it would have done very well at the time.
Yeah, with how things were going.
Except, on the same day, Blizzard was like, fuck this, we're gonna win. If you were a PC gamer, you could pick up this little title called Warcraft 3, the Frozen Thorn. The Frozen Throne. I can't talk.
Yes. Yes.
Now, technically...
when Blizzard did those particular things back then and didn't cause a whole bunch of terrible giant explosions.
Yes, now technically this is an expansion pack for Reign of Chaos, but just... Yeah. The expansion pack defeated any other game that came out that week.
Yep.
I'll skip over some of that stuff. July 17th, Xbox decided to hit back with a little game called Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh, there you go.
Did you ever play that?
Not with that, no.
Oh, it's so good. July 23rd on the GameCube. This is not a good game, but it is notable. Aquaman Battle for Atlantis.
I vaguely know of this game. Never played it, thank God, but still. Ugh.
Yes. Unfortunately, Aquaman has had exactly one game, and it is crap.
So very true.
Okay. July 24th on the Xbox, you could pick up RoboCop, the game.
Did you know? That would be a popular franchise around at this time.
Yeah, in 2003, a very timely release. July 24th, Nintendo's like, fuck it, we're going to get involved in releasing games this summer. On the GameCube, they released a little game called Mario Golf Toadstool Tour.
Yes, getting the Golf series onto the GameCube.
Yes. And the last game we'll bring up for July on the Game Boy Advance is Shrek Wreakin' Havoc. Which, I'm not sure...
because that was also a thing.
I'm not sure which Shrek game that is, but it is certainly a Shrek game. Okay, let us move into August, where the hits just keep on coming. August 5th on the PS2, Silent Hill 3.
Yes.
August 12th on the PS2 and Xbox, Futurama.
Yeah, that's understandable, though it's sad the case that it probably wasn't super popular.
Yeah, probably not. But I think the game is actually meant to be quite good. Oh, it's got kind of like average reviews, actually. Oh yes. August 25th, Nintendo's like, fuck it, we want to win the summer again. F-Zero GX on the GameCube.
Yeah, that would do it. Though, sadly, it's kind of a case of it was something there, but it wasn't enough for any particular person to really be super interested in, and that was pretty much it for the F Zero series.
Yeah, which is really sad because I would love a new F-Zero game.
It would be neat, but it's kind of one of those particular things that it's just niche enough that Nintendo is like, we don't have any decent ideas for it, so it's just gonna sit there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh well. Um, moving on, we go to August 27th. If you had a PS2 or Xbox, you could pick up a little game called Buffy the Vampire Slayer Chaos Bleeds,
Hmm.
which is the only Buffy game that I know of that has multiplayer.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is quite good. August 27th, PS2, Xbox, and GameCube also all would get Soul Calibur 2.
Ah, yes, because of the fantastic absurdity they decided to do with it.
Yes, where each version of the game got a different, like, secret character.
Yes.
GameCube got Link, Xbox got Spawn. Who did PS2 get?
If I remember right, it was Hayachi from Tekken.
Ah, okay. August 28th, if you had a GameCube, you could pick up Buffy the Vampire Slayer Chaos Bleeds. I don't know why it came out a day later on GameCube, but it did.
Release schedules, probably.
Okay, so that was August. Now we get into September. And my god. September 8th on the Game Boy Advance, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance.
Yeah. That was a series.
September 8th on the GameCube, WrestleMania 19.
Yeah, that's understandable.
And then September 9th. Let's just say Valve was like, fuck it, we now control the video game market. If you're a PC gamer, you could either on Steam or at the store, you could pick up a little game called Counter-Strike.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty big.
Yes. Also on the same day, if you're a PC gamer, you could pick up EverQuest Lost Dungeons of Norath, but I'm willing to bet not many people bought that because Counter-Strike was out.
Yeah, well, depending on if you were in the space of playing Counter-Strike. If you're more within the series of playing through EverQuest and whatnot, it's like, yeah, that's understandable, but you're not beating that wave.
September 9th, on the GameCube, you got Piano 3. Do you remember this game?
Not specifically, no.
It was part of that Capcom 5 thing that Nintendo had,
Okay.
where they got like Resident Evil 4, they got this game, and there was like a few others that were meant to be GameCube exclusives.
Okay.
This was like
I
a
think there's one that I have in my head that supposedly released around this time, but I wasn't sure if it was around in the summer or if it was closer to October.
um yeah, this is like it's you play as like this like woman in this like white and black bodysuit, and it's like a third person shooter.
Oh, I think so. I had the vague memory of seeing the advertisements in Nintendo Power about it.
Yes. Apparently it's not very good. It got pretty average reviews, but
Yeah.
September 10th on the Game Boy Advance, Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge.
Yeah, because that was also a thing before the big, terrifying thing happened. I think a couple years later.
I think Rare was already bought by Microsoft at this point, weren't they?
Not too sure, but I know it happens fairly recently within this time.
Let me just take a quick. Yeah, they were Microsoft bought them in 2002.
Okay, around then.
September 12th, if you had a Game Boy Advance, you could pick up Starsky and Hutch.
Hooray! Like the addition of you had us play that game, and couple particular things from there, but also kind of the case of, haha, you made a video game about this particular series that was several years old.
No, David, it was not several years old. It was several decades old.
Yeah.
That show's from the 70s. I don't know if that video ever actually got released, but that was a
Again,
good time for me.
the one particular thought that's just been popping back up into my head is like, how many barrels have they been diving into to try and get video game ideas for particular game companies?
This time frame seems like there were a lot of things like that, though, where they would bring back these old franchises and try them again.
Hmm.
Which doesn't seem to happen anymore because now it's like, well, we'll just go with the surefire hit.
Yeah, with that, there around that time, I think enough things were kind of secure enough that they really wanted to try to take the risks or try to take that big stab of either taking an old franchise or trying something new to see if it will blow up from that. As it is nowadays, though, it's kind of the case of we need a whole bunch of money to actually do things, or our entire company is going to implode on itself.
Yeah, well, there were also companies that like THQ was like this, where like they made games that weren't like AAA big budget. They made like those kind of like what I call double A games, where they were still like good, but they would price them slightly lower, and they obviously spent a little less money on them, so they could afford to kind of price it a little lower and not sell as many copies.
Hmm.
Because they did that. What was that Alien game?
I'm not
It
sure if it's too recent or whatnot, but Alien Isolation.
no no. They did like a remake or not a remake, but like they like repolished it and resold it recently. You play as an alien and you go around. I don't remember what the game's called now.
Hmm. But
Ah,
not like from the series Alien. It's a character Alien.
yeah. What was that game called now? It's gonna bother me. No, it's not Alien. I can picture the box. That's the part that's so annoying to me.
Nothing one from the title on the box.
It's fucking god damn. God, I can see the little gun you've got and everything, and I'm just like, PS2. It was like a PS2 GameCube era game. Um,
Like the only one that I can think of from what you're supposedly describing is Destroy All Humans.
that's it. Destroy All Humans. Yes, like that game was like, I want to say that released at a slightly lower price than most games at the time, and like they clearly spent a little less on it, but it was still really fun.
No, that's definitely true. Kind of those ones of you've heard about it and you've probably seen gameplay of it, but it wasn't the giant super explosion game that everyone was like, "Oh my god, this game needs to be purchased now."
Yeah, but it
Though it's gotten a resurgence with a re-updated re-release and updates to a little bit of it. So it's had little bits of resurgence to it. So enough that people remember it.
but like at the time it did well enough to get a sequel. Like the game obviously made money, and like those kind of games don't really exist anymore.
So very true.
Anyway, September 16th, if you had an Xbox, you could pick up Dino Crisis 3.
Yes.
Did you ever play the Dino Crisis games?
No, I think it's just a case that I remember hearing about them. And it's vaguely interesting. Kind of with the older PlayStation ones, they were kind of survival horror, but instead of zombies or crazy monsters, they're dinosaurs.
Yes. September 16th, if you were a PC gamer, had a PS1, PS2, or Xbox, you could pick up NASCAR Thunder 2004.
That's understandable.
However, on the same day, if you had a PS2, Xbox, or GameCube, you could pick up the Simpsons Hit and Run.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of those games is a little bit better than the other one.
Well, one of those games is essentially just a giant ripoff of GTA.
Yeah, but it's also got the Simpsons license.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like the NASCAR Thunder games at the time were actually pretty good.
No, it's understandable. Kind of the case of two separate classes of gamers got a good game release.
Yes. And then on September 17th, if you were a PC gamer, you could pick up Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy.
Supposed yay? Again, the name rings a bell, but I'm not sure if it was like fairly big or it was just one of those particular Star Wars releases to try to catch the wave that the Knights of the Old Republic had.
No, this was its own like mini franchise within Star Wars. It was like I think the fourth game or something.
Ah,
Yeah. September 22nd, if you're a PC gamer, you could pick up Command and Conquer General Zero Hour.
neat.
Yes, the Command and Conquer games were good. September 22nd, if you're a PC gamer, had a GameCube, PS2, or Xbox, you could pick up either NHL 2004 or Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2004.
So, the golfing and or the other sports things.
Yes, either a hockey game or a golf game. On September 23rd, if you had a PS2, you could pick up DDR Max 2 Dance Dance Revolution.
Yes, because that was a thing that you're still trying to get to consoles, though they can never replicate the actual machines in arcades.
No, of course not, but I feel like those games were very popular at the time.
Indeed.
September 24th, if you had a Game Boy Advance, you could pick up Oddworld Munch's Odyssey.
Yeah.
You do not seem super into this game.
Well, it's kind of a case of I only really discovered it when it first kind of had its major release on the Xbox. And it was just kind of a case of this is an old series that's gotten an updated coat of paint of things. And it's just, I'm not into it.
Fair.
Just from the look of it and how it supposedly plays, it's like I'd be bored out of my mind.
Fair. So, October 1st, on the day this episode aired, you could pick up Ether Lords 2 on the PC. Which, don't ask me what that is, I have no idea.
Yeah, that one's not even ringing a bell.
Also on October 1st, if you were a PC gamer, had a PS2, Xbox, or GameCube, you could pick up a little game called Freedom Fighters.
Supposed neat? Or no, I actually think I remember it. Was it a racing game?
No, Freedom Fighters was a like alternate history kind of like basically you like the Soviet Union invades and occupies New York City, and you have to like you are part of like a resistance movement.
Oh, okay. Then I know nothing of this.
The game got really good reviews, but I don't think it sold very well, and it never got a sequel.
Yeah, understandable.
Which is sad because it was apparently quite good. Anyway, moving on to October 7th on the PS2, a game that was not without controversy. Backyard Wrestling, don't try this at home.
Yeah, kind of a case of it says it right on the tin, but I wouldn't be surprised if they got this for the kids and they immediately started doing it.
It was also an M-rated wrestling game.
Yeah.
Because, do you know anything about these games?
Like vaguely, it's kind of taking the concept of a particular thing and just throwing small kids and whatnot into it, but
No.
I never figured that it would be pushed into M rating with the particular things.
No. Okay, so Backyard Wrestling is, the Backyard Wrestling games were like, they were very over the top. They were, so you could play as, the Insane Clown Posse in them.
Okay.
And then they had like a bunch of other. They had like a couple of like, or well, not just a couple, but like a decent amount of like actual like indie wrestlers at the time. Like you had like M Dog 20 and like Sabu and a few other people. And then there were just a bunch of other people where you were like, what the fuck is it? What the hell? And the story mode was like very over the top. Like there's one part of the story mode where you have like a match in a strip club and.
Okay, because again, from your title, it was the case of huh, this sounds like a kid's game. But looking at the front of the box, it's kind of like, oh, oh.
Yeah, it's it's not a good game, but it's a very entertaining game.
Now I wouldn't be surprised.
Anyway, also on October 7th, if you weren't into backyard wrestling and you were one of the 5 people who bought an N-Gage, you could pick up Sonic Advance.
Hooray for those supposed people, and also the case of, yeah, I vaguely remember that that was a thing, but like, wow.
I so want to be able to find an N-Gage. That's like one of my goals in life.
Radios then.
I don't know why. I just think they're amazing. And finally, the last game. On October 7th, if you had a GameCube, you could pick up this little game that I'm sure will bring back no memories for any of us. Beautiful Joe.
That was it. That was one of the other particular ones Capcom was working on bringing on. And it was kind of the case of throughout this entire summer, after you mentioned F-Zero GX, it was like, wait, this other particular game came out at around that time. Beautiful Joe, right. But it was the case of, right, it didn't release in the summer. It wasn't until the fall that it actually released.
Yes. And I wish we got more of these games because they were really fun.
Indeed, it was somewhat of an interesting thing, but it sadly did not last long.
No, there was like the 2, and then they did like 2 portable games which weren't very good, and then it just kind of ended.
And supposedly they even got a bit of an animated series too in Japan.
Yeah, and I think there was a manga as well. Like it's one of those things where like it did really well for like 2 years and then it died.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, bring back Beautiful Joe.
It'd be interesting. Though, don't send it through an edgy phase. That's the last thing it needs.
No, I would be happy even if they just like re-released them on like the PS5 or PS4.
Like, reintroduce people to the series. It's like, back in our day, this is what we got.
And it was friggin' great. Anyway, let us talk about the episode Conviction.
Indeed.
Okay, so... Okay. Angel saves a woman from a vampire in an alley. However, thanks to a tracking device, Wolfram and Hart lawyers surround the scene. Angel is admonished because the dead vampire worked for the firm's clients. Okay, so...
Seems to kind of be getting used to working in a firm now and not so much in his old ways.
Yes, and here is where we cut for the credit sequence, which I nearly had a stroke when I saw because I'm like, but you gave away a major spoiler in the credits.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
The credits show that James Marsters, who plays Spike, is going to be in the show. However, we don't know that yet. Spike will be revealed at the end of this episode, not the beginning, so why'd you put him in the opening credits? You did this so well previously when you brought back Darla, and you, like, saved her credit till the very end of the episode. Anyway. At Wolfram and Hart, Fred gets lost en route to her office. Wesley finds her, and she tells him that her lab is giganormous, which is my new favorite word.
Duly noted.
And she's unsure of the function of most of the machines in it, but one does make a nice beeping sound.
Wait, how she described it.
Her assistant Knox catches up to Fred. Wesley tries to make conversation by asking him how long he's been evil.
Yeah, since everyone is still not super trusting of being in this situation.
After Knox leads Fred to her office, Gunn meets up with Wesley, who complains that Fred called her lab assistant Noxie. Gunn admits that though he doesn't belong there, they can turn things around and make them better. Lauren passes by, proving he is extremely comfortable in his new setting while making deals on the phone. And
Indeed.
And selecting new carpeting.
Indeed. Hopefully carpeting that doesn't cause projectile vomiting.
Yeah, let's go with that one. I want our clients to become dizzy and vomit. Lauren's my favorite. Anyway, um, meanwhile, Angel's liaison to the senior partners introduces herself as Eve. She tosses him an apple to drive home the irony of her name, which is a pretty good joke. She points out that if he wants to use Wolfram and Hart's power to do good in LA, he'll have to be prepared to do some bad, saying, in order to keep this running, you have to keep it, well, running. Angel responds with a simple bite of the apple. In his office, Gunn encounters Eve, who says that things were a lot simpler when he was just hunting vamps on the street with his gang. She wonders if he's ready for the next step, and he confirms that he is. She hands him a business card and says you'll feel like a new man. The next day, Angel is unhappy to learn that his new secretary is Harmony.
Yeah, just the case that she decided to come back and is amazingly enough still alive.
I was so happy because I'm like, Dave's going to hate this because it's Harmony.
Well, on the one hand, it was kind of the, oh dear God, she's back. And a bit on the hand of, she's there for kind of comedy relief sort of sounds of things. So it might not be terrible, but we'll have to see. I got the cinder block ready, though.
She tells him, I'm strong, I'm quick, I'm incredibly sycophantic, if that means what that guy said. Which is, that's a hell of a joke. And I type like a superhero if there's a superhero whose power was typing.
Well, at the very least, she can do her job.
Kind of. Angel notes that the blood she's brought him tastes good. She tells him that the secret ingredient is otter. Which, no, I like otters. Otters are good. Don't.
Otter adorably cute and silly.
They are good. They're not as good as penguins, but they're close.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw that out there. Wesley arrives, explaining that he picked Harmony from the pool because he thought he would like having someone familiar around. You turned evil a lot faster than I thought you would, Angel replies. Which I understand, because I wouldn't want Harmony as my secretary either.
Yeah.
Harmony's happy to be reunited with the group, especially Cordelia, until Angel breaks the news that Cordelia is in a coma. Harmony brings in client Corbin Fries, on trial for smuggling in girls for prostitution and cheap labor. He readily admits that he's guilty, and when Angel says he has no incentive to keep him out of jail, Fries says, either you get me off or I drop the bomb. In a conference room, Lauren has each employee sing that so he can read them for potential evil. In the science lab, Fred explains Lauren's skills to Knox. Knox tells her that if she wants him to, he'll go up and get Red so that she can be sure he's not evil. Fred is still unsure that she'll be capable of running the whole lab. In Angel's office, the gang wonders if the bomb Fries threatened is mystical. Harmony says that she has the address for a guy named Spanky, a freelance mystic, whose name also shown up in Fry's file. Angel heads out to the garage, which houses a fleet of expensive corporate cars, and takes one out to pay Spanky a visit. Spanky reveals that he built a mystical container which can hold anything until the container is dissolved by a magic word. Back at the science lab, Fred and Knox look through Fry's file and find that he is linked to a cult which specializes in quick-fire disease scenarios, which that sounds fun. When Fred tells him that Fry's may be messing with a virus, Angel says that he knows where the time bomb is. It's inside Fry's son's heart. Which, oh, that's fucked.
Just a bit. Like, suppose you have to start off the episode with, you work with Wolfram and Hart, and this is what one of your clients and whatnot kind of works with.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Gunn is enduring a stressful procedure at the doctor's office. Back at the firm, Fred tells Wesley that they've had no luck in figuring out what virus Fries might be using. Eve pays Angel a visit in his office. She finds it ironic that Angel's dealing with the guy who put a virus inside his own son when Angel just lost his son. She reminds him that Connor's happy and he's the only one who remembers him. Angel tells her that he doesn't want her to say Connor's name. And Eve says that if he takes every case this personally, he won't last long. Fred and Knox spend the night looking over files and photos while eating Chinese takeout. Frustrated, Fred accuses her crew of not working hard enough to save people. The next day, Fry's trial continues. Lauren calls Angel from the trial and says that he thinks they should isolate Matthew, Fry's son, as Angel Hauser listens in. Lauren tells Angel that Fries has no chance of getting off. Hauser tells his agents to go after the kid and anyone within 50 yards of him. And so Angel heads for Matthew's school. Harmony tells him that the special ops team are already on their way. However, when the special ops team gasses Matthew's classroom, they realize it's empty except for Angel. So it turns out, he says, that with this new deal and all, I own a helicopter.
Yeah. So, one of those particular things that comes with running the business.
Absolutely. As Fry's trial heads into final summations, Gunn arrives in a nice suit and helps Keel and gets Keel to cede to him. Gunn moves for a mistrial and announces that the judge should recuse herself from the case because according to the judge's tax records, she holds stock in a company which is owned by a company which is owned by Fry's. The judge claims not to know about the connection, but Gunn says he discovered it after only 6 hours. As Angel and his agents fight, Hauser calls him a pathetic little fairy who lacks the most powerful thing: conviction. Angel replies that there's something more powerful than that: mercy. He causes Hauser to shoot himself in the head with a shotgun, which, oh boy. And the remaining,
just with the particular scene, there probably should have been a bit more of a mess than what they had on hand. Just a case of the last soldier there on the ground. It's like, I thought you showed him mercy. Well, I only showed him the last of it. And Angel just walks away.
Yes. Later, Eve explains to the group that Gunn agreed to let the firm enhance him with legal knowledge. Angel wonders how Gunn knows for sure that nothing else was done. He said that he was in the White Room and is sure. Eve tells the group that they needed a lawyer and Gunn had the most unused potential, and that he just saved the day without using violence. Wesley notes that they did disable the vessel, and Gunn says that Fries has to lie low now until the trial comes up, and when it does, he can drag it out for a long time. Fred wonders if they're actually going to be doing good while they're there, and Angel thinks they are. He opens an envelope he received earlier, and the amulet that he brought to Buffy in Chosen drops out, which is the series finale of Buffy, if you're not familiar. The amulet activates, and a familiar face, Spike, materializes in the office.
And just before we get into the final comments, just the end of the episode with Wesley, Spike, Angel, Spike, and the receptionist coming in. It's like, Spike! And it's like, oh god.
I love, but yeah, like Wesley's like Spike, and Angel's like Spike, and then Harmony walks in and she's like Blondie Bear. It's so good.
Just oh my god! Like on the one hand, oh boy, I wouldn't exactly say it's going to be comic relief sort of case with Spike, but oh man, this is throwing a spicy pepper into the stew pot that is Angel.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, a couple of things that I thought were kind of interesting about this. This episode begins very similar to how the pilot started, with Angel in a dark alley saving a damsel in distress from a vampire.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, like, Joss Whedon even said that, like, was deliberately done to kind of call back to what the essence of the show was, and then to kind of, like, twist it by having all the lawyers show up.
Yeah, just all that stuff sort of happens. It's like, well, you can't do any of this fun stuff anymore.
Also, I don't know if you noticed this, but if you notice, Wesley, Alexis Denisof, all of his scenes were basically shot from the right side. Because he had a case of Bell's palsy on the left side of his face. Do you know what Bell's palsy is?
Not specifically, no.
Oh, okay. So Bell's palsy is a terrifying condition where basically you, like, you lose the ability to control the muscles in like half of your face.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it usually only lasts for like a little while and then like goes away, but it's pretty friggin' terrifying.
Yeah, tiny bit, but okay, interesting.
Yes. Um, yeah.
No,
So
I think the one other interesting thing with the episode, I think they only mostly did it at the start of the episode, was the main entrance area of Wolfram and Hart that everyone spoken with the first one had a nice single shot with everything.
yes,
And it was definitely interesting, especially with the elevator opening on both sides into the hallway and into the main room, just kind of completing the entire full length shot.
yeah. It's for one thing, it's a fantastic set. Like it looks so nice.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, that was a bitch to shoot though.
No, I wouldn't be surprised with having to maneuver the particular camera system throughout that entire sort of area of it.
Yeah, I read. I think it was 27 takes to get that,
Ooh.
which would have been a bitch. Well, because somebody's gonna forget a line or somebody's gonna be out of position. Like that's just gonna happen. But yeah,
Yeah, so true, but still. Ooh.
yeah, um, yeah. So we get a little piece of music here from a composer named Christoph Beck. Are you familiar with that name at all?
Not specifically the name, no.
Okay, so Christoph Beck did a lot of the scoring for Buffy. Okay,
Okay.
not as much for Angel, but he's more famous for scoring a couple of movies.
Uh,
Do you have any idea what movies he might have done? There's one that's like incredibly popular and will maybe surprise you a bit.
yeah, nothing immediately comes to mind.
Oh, okay. So he wrote the music for this little movie called Frozen.
Good for him. Supposedly having the start from this particular point in time and going on to there, though, with that one particular song, he will forever have the terrible scorn of parents and the couple particular music people everywhere.
Now, in all fairness, I don't think he wrote lyrics for it. I think he just did like the composition.
Okay. Though, still, he had a hand in it, so he still has to face the ire of his consequences.
What do you have? I know what song you're referring to. I'm assuming it's Let It Go
Of course, it's Let It Go, and
because that's the
nobody
only song
will let
anybody
it
knows
go
from that
because it
movie.
scripted hooks into every single private theme of all the particular stuff, just like that other particular song that will never leave everyone's heads ever.
Is it the song that never ends?
Well, that is one of the songs, but that sadly hasn't been completely drilled into people's heads, at least until you introduce it. The one particular one I have is Despacito.
I don't know what that is.
Well, thank God you do not have to suffer the torment until it plays on the radio.
Eh, I haven't listened to the radio in 20 years, David. And also, you're welcome now that everybody has the song that never ends stuck in your head, if you're of a certain age at least.
Congratulations, and for those of you who are curious, follow that curiosity. Join us in our pain and suffering.
No, don't. Do yourself a favor and don't. I don't even remember what TV show that was from. I just know the song. Anyway, let us move on to international titles. Okay. So there's a bunch that are just conviction or some variation on that. So we're going to skip over those.
Uh,
In Czech, it translates as first case.
a bit on the nose, but yeah, it works.
In Hungarian, initial difficulty.
Yeah, yeah, that matches.
In Russian, sentence.
Yeah, it works with the court and whatnot.
And in German, goodbye, California.
Yeah, I don't know if that would really match.
I mean, they were dealing with a threat that could have destroyed California, so...
Yeah. Yeah, a bit. Yeah.
Anyway, so next week we'll be discussing the episode Just Rewards. There's going to be a lot of bullshit, and it's going to be good.
Well, yeah, Spike's in the episodes now, so it's gonna be crazy.
Anyway, let's do a quick synopsis for this episode. So Spike mysteriously materializes in Angel's office through the magic of an amulet, but no one, including Spike himself, understands the reason he has returned or why he is now a ghost. Meanwhile, Angel jeopardizes his own life when he tries to stop one of his evil clients from using human bodies as vessels for demon spirits.
Because that's the thing that Wolfenheart most likely would have dealt with.
Oh yeah. And Spike's back, so that'll be good. Spike's back, it makes me so happy. Anyway, until next week, I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.